Hello and welcome to Demon Media episode 28. I said the right number. Uh, so today, we're going to go over volume 8 and 9 of Rwby. Viewer discretion is advised. We're going to be saying that a lot for very, for very good reasons. Um, then, word vomit. Uh, excuse me. Viewer discretion advised. Spoiler warning ahead for both volumes. I know volume 8 is on Rooster Teeth's site, but if you have Crunchyroll, all of Rwby is on Crunchyroll, so you can watch it on there too, for payment, because, everybody wants money. Maybe I should have adjusted my camera before we started recording me. Okay, but, yeah, so viewer discretion, spoilers incoming. Okay, and today we have our lovely Rwby expert here with us today.
Hi.
Yes.
What a title.
Yes, we have a lot of experts here.
Alrighty. Yes. My name is Jen. I go by Jen Period Cosplays. I use she, her pronouns. You can find me Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and I am ready to discuss Rwby Volume 8 and 9 with the lovely host Springy.
Yes.
Got this.
So, before I start talking about Volume 8, because if you guys know how this works, I'll talk about one of the seasons, or volumes in this case, because that's what they're called. Then I'll just go over my whole spiel. Then Jen will pop in with everything I missed. I'm saying that for a reason. Then we'll have a small discussion if we feel like it, if you want to compare or whatever. And then we'll go on Volume 9, where Jen's going to be mainly talking about it. If I have anything funny or noteworthy to say, I'll go from it when she is completely done with the volume, talking about it. And then, same thing, small discussion, then we're going to be done. But, so, my job was to watch Volume 8 again. I watched the first 2 episodes. So, if I missed something, blame college and work. I had no time. Even though we planned this, when Volume 9 was coming out. Or, I don't know if we planned date, but we planned on doing this. I think we planned on doing this video before Volume 9 even had a trailer. I think. Not the dates, but we were... Yeah, I was so well prepared for this. I watched 2 of the episodes. And my notes are interesting. Okay, so I guess I'll just go right on into it. So the first episode, it's called episode 1. Divide. That's what the episode is called. And it starts off with some needed Cinder backstory. Just small bits. We'll talk about it more as, it progresses, but, Cinderfall, the character, is based off of Cinderella. It makes a lot of sense. It makes more sense now than just the naming convention. But, with that little bit of backstory, then we go into, it was just her cleaning the floors. Then, we see Cinder and Neo flying one of the Atlas crafts into the cat. Sorry. Into what you call a whale of a problem. Exactly. So they're flying to this giant grim whale, which is where we left the characters off. Volume 7, I do believe. I think that, or like a shocked expression on somebody's face, was the last thing we saw. I think it was a whale. It's like, whale! Done. Great ending. A whale of a problem. That's what the episode should have been called. A whale of a problem. To make it like, what? And then, no? Okay. So, they go in, and, it's basically like a meeting of the evil with, Cinder and Neo walking up, seeing Salem, the main bad guy, or bad gal, I guess in this case. Then we see Tyrion again, being the slippery snake He always is, but he's a scorpion. Then we see Emerald and Mercury run in. So this was the first time that Neo met or actually saw Salem. So yeah, this whole time you've been working with what is pretty much an evil goddess, literally and metaphorically, whatever you want to say it as. But yeah, uh, so that was interesting. And Cinder's doing her Cinderness, like I am superior. She was slightly being like Neo was slightly helpful with her slightly helpful skills, and Neo just like being like so sassy in her eyes, like just staring daggers at Cinder the whole time, being like, "Bitch, I'm the one who did all that, but I can't talk right now." Or technically ever, but we'll learn why I said in a little bit. I'm shoving towards Jen because we learned it next volume. We shove, and then so there was just a problem. She was just Emerald was so excited to see Cinder, and Cinder was like, "Quiet, peasant," basically, which is also funny because she's based off of Aladdin. But yeah, then after Salem puts Cinder in her place very quickly, it's like, no, you're not in charge here. Stop your nonsense. After that, we go and we see that Oscar is alone at the moment, and is getting fed some soup from a kind old man on a log. Until Rwby finds him in the airship because Ozpin in the head was like, "Look, there's a ship," and there was one, and it had Rwby in it, and of course, as every single Rwby character ever, Oscar feels like everything is his fault. And then, and while he's feeling like everything is his fault, him, Rwby, Weiss, and the best old lady ever, Maria, are flying to meet with the Happy Huntresses, where Junior and Penny and her father, which I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I was writing Pietro, yes. Pietro, yes, you're right.
Okay.
They're all there. And they're asking like, where is Crow? And Crow is off being sad, for right now. And then basically these two different main ideas come up, which is either to go and help launch Amity, which was their big ship of communication to get the word out to Remnant as a whole, or help move people to the lowest crater parts of Mantle, which I forgot that there's like technically 3 stages in Atlas as a place. There's Atlas, Mantle, and then the crater. But I remembered that now because I watched it. So basically 2 separate teams arise, which is I labeled as Team Rwby and Team Yang because they were the 2 who were kind of butting heads first, so it just made sense. They were Rwby, Nora, Penny, who is now the Winter Maiden. I believe I said that last time we talked about Rwby. Weiss and Blake, and then the Team Yang, who are going on saving people and moving them to the crater, which was fun, I bet. Which I'll talk about in a second. Was Yang, Ren, Jean, and Oscar. We see kind of flashes of each person's idea as they're kind of unfolding, as they're talking about it. We kind of see like parts that are like a little. little bit in the future. That makes it sound like it's like years in the future. It's like like 10 minutes in the future or something. And after the end of kind of doing all that, Ironwood calls Penny with some very convincing concern about her. uh, yeah, concern. About, and also just pretty much saying that it's all her fault if people die, because great guy in these last two volumes, or last in volume 7 and 8. He's a great guy. Then pretty much right after Rwby says screw off, screw off. Sorry, but then we flip over to Ironwood's perspective of that, and laughing at how Rwby said that to him. No, he wasn't actually laughing, but just seeming annoyed. And then we see the Aesops, all 4 of them, being very sad, staring down at Clover's corpse. Are we saying he's dead at this moment, or are they trying to heal him? Because he looked. They were the only 4 people in the room with him. So, like, I feel like either he's in a deep coma, or, like,
I think he was deceased.
Yeah, at least at that. Yeah, I agree. At least at that moment, we're talking about that. But then we see Winter pretty much healing and being talked at by Ironwood while she's healing from the fight that was with her, Cinder, and Penny. Or, well, Winter and Penny, right here. There's 2 of them, right here. And then it's the one, Cinder, right here. This one. Trying to protect the then current Winter Maiden. And yeah, that did not go well for her, but it went well for only Penny. Technically. So then we hear some commotion of yelling coming down a hallway, and it's I don't remember exactly what they're called, but I just call them like the senators of Atlas. Like the appointed people of Atlas. Just basically trying to berate Ironwood, and he's like, I will do anything it takes to keep Atlas safe. I don't know why I make him sound like Batman, but like that's like the vibe he was giving off at that moment. And then he walks out of Winter's room, which has a giant window. Same thing with Clover, so everybody sees this. He walks out and shoots him. Shoots the male senator just up, and the male one in a blue suit. Yeah, I wrote that distinctive notes for that one episode. And it showed that Winter was a little shocked, but it showed that the Aesops minus Mero didn't convey that they cared a lot about that moment. Like, we saw a little bit of Harriet being like, it's a little weird, but it's like, I'm gonna ignore that. That's kind of like the how I kind of saw that scene going out on that. Then it kind of goes into the last scene of the episode. We see the Hound. We don't know what he's called yet, but the Hound being a problem. And how Cinder is using the Hound as his name and sniffs the relic of choice, because they have that now because of Neo, not because of Cinder.
That was the lamp of knowledge, isn't it? And then choice comes later. It's the crown of choice. It's okay. Shit. I got confused earlier with the Rwby relics too, God. So don't feel bad.
I was like, choice questions that make sense, but knowledge makes more sense. Yep. I'm just gonna go and cry.
No, it's okay. I got confused earlier too, so I forgot about the Sword of Destruction. So
yes, I'm actually having that commissioned. I'm still waiting on an update for it though. Anywho, now I'm going into the second episode, and my descriptions will get shorter after this episode. We'll get a lot shorter. Because my notes only go up to episode 2. And there's 14 episodes. Or 16? 14? Something like that. Something in the mid-teens. Where we open on Crow in a cage. Being in the caged bird right now. And he is just staring at Clover's bloody pendant in his hands. Being Sadburb. Shadbor. And then at first it seemed like Robin's also in a cage. The two birds are in a cage. That sounds like the starting of a joke, but it's not. First it sounds like Robin is blaming Crow for stuff, but really she's blaming Jacques, who's also in a cage. Where it's good. And then we also see that Watts is in a cage. They're all in separate cages. There's 4 cages. Or walled areas, I guess. I don't know. Blaming them for everything that's been happening, with the Grim attack, with the politics. That was all of Volume 7. Or a good chunk of it. And then, we see after Watts and Jacques had their snide remarks, and Jacques being like, I bet Whitley has already found a way to get me out of this with my mustache. It's the birds and the mustaches in jail.
Sounds like a great rock band.
It does. Put like a little mustache on a crow. On a shirt.
There you go. I'd attend. I'd go to that concert.
Same. But then Watts gets let go, aka forced to work for Ironwood, which is something we learn a little bit later on. But I'm just putting this here now because why not? We'll learn in a few more episodes where he was pulled out of the jail after being tased. And to hack into Penny, because Penny is a robot at this moment, give her a virus to where she will be forced to go back to Atlas, whether she wants to or not, and return home. And then that scene ends with Crow wanting to kill Ironwood, which, valid feeling. Then we go to a news reporter, a random one, who gets interrupted by one of the Happy Huntresses. I did not look up their name. I was going to.
Joanna.
Yes, Joanna. Thank you. Because I don't remember. I forgot to write down their name. But yes. To get people to head to the middle of Mantle. Let's say Mantis. My brain's been thinking of Guardians of the Galaxy too much. Being the crater. Getting them all there. And then Pietro gave Yang the keys to his shop because he was sounding all wise and folksy, saying how I made something for you and all that. Because Ozpin sounds like a wise owl. He sounds like a wise old grandpa. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And Yang does a cute pose, because I wrote that down, because that's very important on how cute the pose is, exactly. And then they get some cool new hover bikes, and Oscar gets to taste some of Yang's hair. I put down such small notes for these episodes, but after this one, it's going to be like, 6 more episodes, and they're still doing this, and now we're on to this. They're on to the Hound nonsense, but, so there was 3 bikes. One had Yang and Oscar. I almost said Ozpin. That would have been a weirder picture. And then Jean and Ren both got their own. They were fighting some saber-toothed Grim. I think they're just called sabers. At least that's what I read once, and it's stuck in my head for some reason. And they were fighting them. Jean got to use his new little hard-like discs. Little disc things. And to block the Grim, and then Ren jumps down like a badass and starts, attacking them. Um, but yeah. So and then Yang comes up with the idea of Jean amping up Ren's semblance to block everybody's auras. Um, where is okay? Yes, and then also Yang defending the Faunus from some light racism from the people of Mantle. Um, racism light. Diet racism. That's what that was. It was passive aggressive racism at that moment. And then Oscar not, and then we flash back to Team Rwby with a U, um, and Oscar talking to us. Oh, fucking yeah, we're still with
Too
Team
many
Yang.
characters.
There's too many characters, too many mixtures, and Oscar not wanting to become Ozpin, Ozpin not really wanting that either, but it's happening. Um, and then Jean tries to be all cheery, and Ren is sick of it, sick of his bullshit. Um,
Give my man a break.
imagine if that was the last scene before the end of the season. Like, can you stop? And then it's like, and problems. Now we're back with Team Rwby with a U, where May joined them, May Marigold, and Weiss is slightly flexing about the family company and how they have their own robots that Atlas does not control, but they're hired by the Schnee Death Company. All fancy. And how that there are tubes like interlocking everything. Probably saw the meme of Nora hitting a button and Weiss just being yeah, that's this episode right here. That's about to happen. And also Penny just being really sad about how all like why do friends gotta fight and all that. About the Aesops and Ironwood and being tools. Like I said, my notes are very one-sided on some sides. Um, but yeah, and we also got some funny Blake and Weiss cuteness as well. And yeah, I don't even think I watched all of episode 2. So yeah, but they get sucked through the tube and yeah, and they get to the terminal because they learn that there's 2 different terminals to get Amity. Yeah, that place. Get it to where it needs to go into the airs. And yeah, that's basically episode 2 in a nutshell. I mean, like we meet up with a few other happy huntresses here and there, but like that's, I mean, that's the big part of it. Now I'm going to be jumping around storylines a lot because I did not write anything else down, it's all from memory. So I'm sorry if I forget something. So basically, they get zoomed to the right place where they needed to get zoomed to. They did what they needed to do, which was to access the console and get able to allow Amity
Amity.
Yeah. Yes, that word. That and the one character from Ice Queendom I'm never going to be able to say. But yeah, so they get where they need to go. So and also the hover bikes don't last long. They lasted that episode, and that was about it. Because they were Team Yang. They were chasing after the Hound because they found Oscar, because that was the point of going, because the Hound's like, yes, you know how to activate the lamp, which he does. And then we learn that this Hound is not like every other Grimm. We'll learn more about him later, but just skipping around a little bit, and not being chronological order. We learn later on after a fight, and they finally defeat it by dropping a giant Schnee money level chandelier onto it. Like and we learn that the hound was made from a silver-eyed faunus, and we know that the silver-eyed people have the power to destroy Grimm, and I guess become them. We don't really get a bunch of explanation on how that happened. I hope we do, because that's very interesting. I am very pleased. Not pleased. That's terrifying. But the Hound was absurdly strong. Like, it took on multiple, like, we see from, future episodes, past episodes, that, Team Rwby even split up into, like, any combination of two can take on 1 to 2, the 3 or 5 Grimm by themselves. Rwby and Blake could not take down the Hound. And same thing with all of Yang's team, being Yang, Jean, and Ren. They couldn't take it down either. And it also sprouted wings. Like, they don't usually evolve. And it spoke slightly. Slightly spoke.
I nearly pooped my pants when it said the word no. I was like, excuse me, Grimm don't talk. Like, what?
What? Exactly. So they problems arise always. Because Team Yang, I'm just calling it Team Yang and Team Rwby with a U, they find out that some pools of darkness are like cracking the ground of Atlas, like of the snow and everything, showing like these like streaks of like black ooze just going to Atlas and everything. Obviously, for the point of more Grimm, because Salem brought barely any with her. But pretty much everybody succeeds in their primary goals. Like, Amity, there we go, gets raised, at least for, excuse me, a little bit. All of the residents of Mantle do get down to the crater and are safe by the end. Excuse me. I'm having a day now, aren't I? We have a pretty cool fight scene in episode 5 between Maria and Neo, and we've seen a lot that Neo isn't really anything to sneeze at. Like, she's probably overpowered at some points, but still, like, I don't think we've seen her be defeated. I think she got defeated by Maria, and I think that's it. Because, like, she was even still going toe-to-toe with Cinder after she got the Fall Maiden powers and couldn't control her Grimm arm and everything. So, like, woo! Yeah, Neo's no one to sneeze at, like, at all. Like, it's crazy. But, like, Maria was able to, being the best old woman she is, being technically an ex-silver-eyed warrior, and being a well-known remnant huntress as well, to the point where Crow modeled his weapon after hers, which were 2 scythes? Or was it just 1? 1 or 2?
It's 2.
Just like my OC. I didn't even notice that. Okay. Anywho. But, I know I'm skipping around a lot, and obviously people should go watch the episodes and stuff. But one of the things that Team Rwby, with a U, had to do to get into the terminal, I believe it's the terminal, and was that Nora had to absorb a lot of energy, because her semblance is, absorbing energy and able to shoot it back out. She absorbed, we could say, too much energy. And now, at least within this season, I don't know if it will it's healed by volume 10 or not, but um she gets like these like burn patterns of electricity all over her body, being like slightly pinkish as well. That could also just be the color of it, or reference to Nora's one of her primary colors. I don't know, but they have to fight the Aesops again, and they had a lot of backup this time as well. Marrow's semblance is very overpowered in some cases. Um, and yeah, every words. They all do meet back up at the Schnee Manor, and that's pretty much where Nora had to heal for a little bit. That was pretty much their home base, literally for some and metaphorically for others, for the time being, because that was somewhere that they all knew. And at this point, during the last fight with the Hound, not Pyrrha.
Pyrrha. Ooh.
When I first started watching Volume 8, I thought Pyrrha was gonna show up. Okay, like I didn't know Grim Pyrrha was fake. Okay, that was my own problem. So anywho, carry on from that. Penny was starting to get hacked by Watts and his programming to start going back to Atlas, to go back to Ironwood and all that. Team Rwby with the W, and pretty much everybody there was stopping her and, able to hold her back from going. And after all that, Ironwood was like, stop being annoying and come home, please. You're causing a scene. So they developed this plan with Winter, because Winter was not on James' side, at least not by episode. Yeah, no, we're on episode 12. I'm skipping around a lot. And I'll go back and talk about Cinder's backstory as well, because that is a very interesting story. But where they come up with a plan to trick Ironwood out of his area and to be alone, so they can, try and stop him, at least to a point, and at least for the time being, where they're going to give them Penny, and Emerald actually switched sides at fucking some point. And while so the plan was that they're going to beat up Ironwood. They're going to jump him. So Iron was like, I'm so happy you have come to your senses. And Emerald turns back into herself after disguising herself as Penny, being like, you know what? It felt good to be a good guy for a minute. And then they start just beating on Ironwood. Just this group of teenagers, and Winter at this point as well, just beating on Ironwood. And he does get his revenge on that a little bit later on with their new plan was to get the Staff of Creation. That's the one I remembered. But to get it, to sneak in there to do two things primarily. One, the only way to get the virus out of Penny was to make her a real girl. And so it can never happen again. Because they set it to where she will die if they don't. Because, put more stakes on this mission, why don't you? So they do that. And we get to meet a brand new genie being named it's like not Aurora, not like Ambrosia. It's something close to that.
No. Like, of course, I've been watching The Dragon Prince.
I'm just gonna say his name's Ambrosia for right now and stick with that, because it's close. It's close enough. Because like the other one's name is Jin. This one's Ambrosia because this genie's a male. And he is a strapping fella, if I do say so myself. The best way for me to describe Ambrosia is, I'm looking up the Pokemon's name right now. Think of Thundurus from Pokemon. He's a blue genie legendary Pokemon.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and I was looking up because I also named one of mine. Yeah, that's gonna help.
Oh.
Is his name? So I was trying to look up if it help. It does not. I'm just going to call him Ambrosia. So
Mm-hmm.
he's much more like the stereotypical genie in some, I guess mythos. Yeah, I guess because they had to do this very quickly because
Mm-hmm.
the rules of the staff were anytime it gets used, the last thing it got used on, stop. Like it disappears, stops working, so on and so forth. Whatever it was being used
Mm-hmm.
for is no longer being used for it. Like in this case, first it was used to raise Atlas out of the ground, and thus Atlas
Mm-hmm.
mantle crater. Atlas came out of a crater.
Whee!
Whee! Social classes. Yay. Um Yay! Diversity. Anywho, carrying on there. Um the first thing they did was he's very tricky where you have to make sure is you are very specific with
Mm-hmm.
what you want. You want just saying that you want Penny to be a real girl isn't enough. You have to show him the plans for Penny for her like her when she was first made and everything. Show him that. You know, being like, this is what we want. This is exactly what we want. We don't want anything changed to it. We want this. And he does it. Now there are two Pennies at the same time. One that's a robot and collapsing. And the other one that is now a real girl and can feel real girl emotions. Uh for you know, a good long while. Um Then they activate step two, which was to create one way, which was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one
Twice.
way portals from Mantle's crater and all over Atlas and Mantle to Vacuo, which was their next stop, which was the next place that they're planning on going to anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
just skip a whole season of travel for that. Um, so they all make it there. Well, slow down a little bit. So everybody gets through the portal, and Ambrosia says that do not fall off the path because it like everybody's like, oh yeah, that's fine. Don't put any guardrails. It'll be fine. Don't add that into the plan. Uh, yeah, they should have added the guardrails to the plan. Um,
Yeah,
and
pretty.
true, it was very pretty. So they're a portal, kind of a pocket dimension, I would say, somewhat, and then golden pathways to from one place to the other, and they're all one way. You can't go back to Mantle, but and once you go to Vacchio, you can't go back through to help anybody with anything, which was a problem. Um, so Cinder and Neo, being the sneaky snakes that they are, sneak in with everybody else to, I guess, get away from Atlas falling. Because now it's falling. This
Mm-hmm.
giant place is falling at this current time. And we're having two primary fights happening at the same time. Or three, I guess. Three? Yeah, I'm going to say three. But in two different locations. And I'll explain why I say that. So the first fight, or first one I'm going to say, was between Winter and Ironwood in the chamber where the Staff of Creation was. Winter's not doing so well. We'll come back to Winter in a second. Then there is Team Rwby, with a W, going up against Neo. And then Team Orange. I'm going to say orange, it's a color. Because it works. Is going up against Cinder, which, you know. Oh, and Penny. Penny's also there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget that Penny's there for a very important reason. I'll say so in a second. And so pretty much it's Team Orange is just slightly helping, and it's basically a fight between Cinder and Penny.
Mm-hmm.
If we've learned anything from Volume 3, Cinder up against any redhead is not a good plan. It makes any redhead with a P name. It does not end well. It's going somewhat well, but now Penny is a human. So her weapon that spawns out of her back is gone. She has no weapons anymore, at least not to the same caliber that she had, and she's still having to adjust from that robot to becoming, a human. And instead of using all of those mechanics to fly around and everything, and using to get her, her weapons to Jedi mind trick their way around, she has to use a lot of her aura and the maiden powers to continue to do these things. So, after a while, at the end of episode, what was it? I'm gonna double check the numbers because I want to make sure I'm thinking of the right one. At the end of episode 13, being called Worthy, Neo goes in to attack Rwby because Neo really fucking hates Rwby really badly, and that's something that happens a lot in this season. Very much like when, no, that was last season technically, being like, when are we gonna go after Rwby? And it was like, calm down, stop your nonsense. We will handle her in a minute. Just go sit in the ice cream corner and sit there for a little bit. Go sit in your ice cream chair and eat some ice cream. So then, and instead of Rwby getting hit, Yang jumps in the way and gets knocked off the path, and then we see her just evaporate. Or turn to... She gets Thanos. She falls down and she doesn't splat. She just powders all over the place, doing like little orange speckles. And in the community, everybody thought she was dead. They're like, wow! I thought she was too. I was like, wow! I was like, they can't have killed a main character. That doesn't make sense. That'd be too sad.
Yeah, plot armor.
Literally and metaphorically. But then we episode over. Pretty much. Then episode 14. Whew. Okay, so Winter's not doing so great with her fight with Ironwood. And Penny's not doing so great with her fight either. To the point where she gets badly injured. Nora, Oscar, and I believe Ren is also helping at this moment too, are fighting off Cinder. Trying to, at least. And Jean runs over. And people are falling off. Blake and Weiss fall off the side, fighting Neo, because Neo can just do that. And now it's just pretty much Rwby and Neo fighting in the corner. And Penny is now on the ground. And Jean's like, I can heal you! There's no time. Viewer discretion advised. No,
of course you were gonna take it out. How dareth you? Stab.
Stabby stab. And, Penny's dead. She, again.
Just like that.
Well, let's hope it's just like that. Let's hope she doesn't sit there and stutter.
Pain.
Let's hope there was... Okay, and he was screaming in pain. Because, he just had to stab someone that was a friend of his. And, that was fucking sad as fuck. With the gut-wrenching scream, where even Cinder was like, okay, what the fuck? Like, it's like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything to you yet. Why are you screaming? Like, that type of look. It was like, what are you doing? I did not torture you yet. None of your For being like the Fall Maiden, like she didn't kick anyone off at this point off the side. She didn't make anyone fall.
I thought she did.
Not yet. At least not yet. I don't think. Oh no, she made Weiss fall.
No, she made Neo and Rwby fall.
Oh yeah, but at the point of where I'm telling it, she hadn't make anybody fall yet. I didn't say. I
knew it should have been. Okay, this is yours.
Anywho, yeah. So that ended. It only went well for Winter because like she got to actually say goodbye to Penny, and Winter was the last female that Penny was thinking of, and she is now the Winter is the Winter Maiden. That's not confusing for verbiage at all. But that is what happens. And then she kicks the shit out of James Ironwood and then is left with the falling island of Atlas. He's going down with the ship. And yeah, so he's dead. Moving on. So she flies through a portal and starts to fight with Cinder, and then Weiss fell because I remember her being like, "Weiss!" Blake tried to help Rwby, didn't work. Rwby kind of just got thrown back onto the thing by Blake. Everyone's falling at this point. Jean's trying to fight Cinder, doesn't work. His sword gets broken, and it's covered in blood as well. From the penny shish kebab he just made.
Springy, it's terrible.
Because that's the. I don't think that's the worst thing I've said.
That's true.
In this video, probably, but just wait, there's more. So Cinder, so Neo gets the staff, and then Cinder takes it from Neo, and Ruby's hanging on to Neo, on her leg, because like they're going to fall, but Neo hang on to the magical pixie dust road, and was hanging on, and yeah, Cinder takes the staff out of her hand, and then just pushes her off. It's like, boop. That doesn't show on camera, but I used my foot. Because I feel like it's a foot type of thing. Because this whole season, she was just disrespecting Neo. And I'm like, really? Really? Ugh. And, yeah, now at this point, the staff is being, I guess, turned off. Because Cinder just knows how to do that somehow. Or she wished... I don't think she made anything else. Or she made it very fucking quickly.
I thought she did. She told Salem she added to the fires of Atlas. And then you see Watts like kind of locked in a...
Oh,
right.
Right.
Cinder did use the Staff of Creation.
But slightly. We're just gonna add. Add to what's already happening. And yeah, so like I said before, once it gets used again, the thing that it got used for before just starts to dissolve or disappear. So yeah, so everybody else is running. They're running. They're trying to get to the portal. Team Rwby is presumably dead at this moment. And then running. Winter's able to make it because she's flying, because, you know, that's helpful when you're trying to run away, flying. And everybody else makes it, except for Jean. He jumps, and he misses. Well, he didn't miss, it's just the portal disappeared. And as soon as, like Winter was gonna save him, but then she's kind of, like, got somewhat pulled into the portal. Like, it was, like, still, like, the momentum of going that way was, you know, she got pulled back, and then... And, yeah, and then to talk about the Cinder backstory, after all that horrible things that Cinder did, let's give you some pity for poor Cinder. Let's end it with pity for Cinder. Um, so Cinder did not have a good upbringing, as most supervillains don't. Um, except for the really annoying ones. So basically, it's the tale of Cinderella, basically, with some things changed. But the main things that were changed is that instead of just cleaning the house, it was cleaning a hotel, and so she was just the maid there. She was like adopted off the streets and stuff, from the sister, or yeah, from whatever, because it was Eva's stepmother, so it was from an old marriage. You know what I mean? Either way, Cinder from the street, Cinder from the streets, and see, that makes up for the shish kebab jokes. Now if I bring them up again, but then there's this guy who comes in, the strapping fella, when Cinder was young, and started to train her in fighting. After showing, and Cinder was just mad. Cinder was not training to become the best that there ever was. But she was training for revenge. And at one point, she actually kills her mentor. And then I think she also kills the evil stepmother and stepsisters. Or boss and the other two who are being dicks. And then went off to be evil. Like that's the broad strokes of it. Like a lot. Like obviously, this is not a replacement for watching it. This is just you get the broad strokes. So if, like when Volume 10 comes out, you can be like, okay, I get it. So we end that with, we see that Vacuo is still there, but they're this group of innocents and like five hunters and huntsmen, and then Winter being the Winter Maiden, are now have to protect them against the Vacuo Grim, and hopefully we get some backstory on that later on. But and then the last scene of the episode shows an island. Think of a pretty island, and or at this point looks like a pretty beach and everything, with Crescent Rose just stuck in the ground, like all cool things are just randomly stuck in the ground when they land. And that's the end of Volume 8 for the broad strokes, mainly because I forgot to rewatch this episode. Anyhow,
okay.
Jen,
you got it.
Yeah, I got it. Oh, the Hound did take Oscar to the whale, but they saved Oscar, and
they had to fight Salem.
They had to fight. Oh, that did not go well. But it ended. They survived. Nobody died from that, and that's when Emerald
Hazel did.
Them. Oh, right, Hazel did.
Hazel
I really liked Hazel too. Damn,
I did too. He was such a father figure to Emerald, and to see his character kind of go, I was like, he could have had that redemption arc, and I would have given it to him. Emerald, I'm still on the fence about, but I think as time goes on, she might be able to prove herself. So.
And then Oscar used the Ozpin stick and blew everything up. Basically, because Ozpin has been storing energy in it since his second life or something like that. The second reincarnation or something like that. And that's been eons of time. Like the Avatar type of... It's exactly like the Avatar. Almost. But yeah, but it would be like if the first Avatar has been just slowly taking over all of them in between, but that's not the point here. One other thing, because this thing, just to saying this, Volume 9 happens all on this in the other place. We don't see like Ren and Nora make it, Oscar makes it, Winter makes it. They're all in Vacuo. We don't see them in Volume 9, and Jen cries every night.
All the time.
All the time. Not just every night. All the time.
Inside. I need bye-bye, please.
Yeah,
Oh,
bye. And
bye.
yeah, and yeah, so that um so yeah, we don't know what's going to happen, and yeah, and it'd be interesting if they do kind of show a further development of Oscar becoming Ozpin, or if they figured something out when we do see them again. Is what I mean. I'm not trying to step
Yeah.
into your territory, yo. But I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm tired.
So good.
Jen, save us, please. Thank you.
Okay. I just have a couple notes to point out with Volume 8 in a review. I did a live stream, I think back in 2021, where I like covered everything on my Nora Valkyrie roleplaying page. However, a few things that Springy was talking about, I did want to mention. Rooster Teeth was promoting a coffee during the volume 8, and you can actually see it in Cinder's backstory. It's on one of the shelves, and I actually purchased that coffee, and it was very, very good and tasty. The Silver-Eyed Warrior, yes, that freaked me out very, very much. However, what really freaked me out was people saying online, like, oh, it's Summer Rose. Like, right before that episode came out, I'm like, it's not Summer Rose. There's no way. It's like, stop with the theories. So, yeah. But the Hound was kind of, because Rwby is based off of Little Red Riding Hood, you have like the big bad wolf. So the Hound was also kind of a resemblance of that as well. Uh, we have Ren and Nora. Oh, sorry, I'll talk about it really, really quick, I promise. But Ren and Nora scene, they have like a heart to heart kind of scene. It is one of my favorite Rwby scenes. I absolutely adore it. It lives in my head rent free. I love those two so much. Just the dialogue, the voice acting. Samantha Ireland and Neethum did a fantastic job voicing them. The music in the background, and just the two of them coming to the conclusion that Nora needs a little bit of time to discover who just Nora is before they can be the partners that they deserve. And I'm going to start crying. Oh no. But I love that. I love that scene so, so much. All right, Springy already brought up, yes, all the events in Volume 8 take place in like 2 days and shortly after everything that happened in Volume 7. So everything's like quick, 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 gotta go type of thing. In the transition from Mantle and Atlas to Vacchio, the gold bridges is to represent the Yellow Brick Road in Wizard of Oz, to follow the Yellow Brick Road. I feel like with Cinder, we should have gotten her backstory a bit earlier, but I feel like she is so consumed with power, trying to get what's hers and all this stuff that I think eventually it's gonna be her downfall. Sadly. But it's again, oh gosh. And then lastly, before we move on, I did want to mention too that the day the last episode, the last chapter came out, I had just watched it, was crying my eyes out, got a package from Amazon and from the Rooster Teeth store, my Penny plush doll, my Penny Polendina doll, and my grief counseling book came on the same day the episode that chapter 14 came out. And I was like, really, out of every other day, this could have been delivered. It had to be this specific day. I was not a happy Jen. I hugged my penny doll so tight that night. I'm like, I got you. You're okay. Everything's okay. Oh, goodness. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for Volume 8 review.
Nothing ever happened.
Nothing
Ever.
bad.
Ever
Ever.
happened. Ever.
Exactly.
The only thing I would say before we get into Volume 9 is, so the viewer discretion was mainly for Volume 9.
Okay.
There are, like, Volume 8 has some things that you need to watch out for, but Volume 9,
It's gonna get a bit heavy at times.
is. So, viewer discretion, starting right meow, and it talks about. Should I just say what it talks about so people just know?
I mean, it would be good.
So it talks about ideologies of suicide, um, grief,
Self-harm.
self-harm,
Okay.
um, and a lot of heavy things. Like grief heavily is in there, and self-harm and suicide and a lot of stuff like that. Um, and even like to the point where like it's actually affecting the main characters, not just like side things, not just like goofy things. There's a lot of goofiness in these episodes. I'm not saying like it's not
Yeah.
balanced. It's just it's very, very. Uh, they the Ever After, which is what's called. It's very based off of Alice in Wonderland. Not Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
Alice. Yeah,
The
is it
girl,
Alice?
the girl. Well, it's the girl who fell through the world
World.
is the remnant tale. However, in our world, it is Alice in Wonderland and also Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Yes, my brain for some reason was like
Okay.
mixing that and Wizard of Oz. Like I kept on saying Wizard of Oz to the
Uh,
point where I'm like, no, the first thing I say is not right. Um,
um,
so like there is a lot of bright colors and everything, and that is definitely, at least in my opinion, the contrast to a lot of these
yeah.
darker themes that they're dealing with in the at least back half, if not touching on it from the beginning of the volume. So I just wanted to warn people about that now, before Jen talks about all the sad things. Uh,
Well, it's mostly happy things, and then as things progress, I'll let folks know.
yeah, yeah. So 18 other viewer discretions. Jen will probably be saying them as well, but I just wanted that to be known before I shut up and let Jen talk about Volume 9, the one where we all cry.
Okay. Yes. It's all good stuff, though. Is the floor mine? All right, let's rock and roll. Rwby Volume 9. We're going to start with a little bit of a premise. So, the volume premiered February 18th, 2023, and ran for a 10 episode with no breaks because sometimes there might be like a week or two. There might need to be like some animation corrections or something. But they're like, we're going to go on this train and there's no breaks. So, let's all aboard until April 2022, 2023. Rwby Volume 9 was only aired on Crunchyroll. Usually Rwby used to be on YouTube back on the day, and then went over to Rooster Teeth, but Rwby Volume 9 was exclusively on Crunchyroll. The events take place shortly after Rwby Volume 8, when Team Rwby, Jean, and Neo fall down into the open vastness. They find themselves in a fairy tale known in Remnet as the girl who fell through the world. Now they need to find their weapons, their bearings, and their way back home. And each episode was the opening song Inside, performed by Casey Lee Williams and Martin Gonzalez. I hope I said your name right. Alrighty, here we go. Chapter 1, A Place of Particular Concern. And you'll notice a lot of these titles are alliteration
yes.
base, which is also like a kind of theme within Alice in Wonderland as well. So it starts with Rwby's first person view. If you see me looking up to the side, I have notes because there's a lot to cover. So Rwby's first person view, that's the day that Cinder attacked, which Springy was talking about, and all that. So we're seeing like Rwby's first point of view. It's not just like looking at the screen, you're looking through Rwby's eyes. And speaking of eyes, I really love the effect of how whenever Rwby activates her silver eyes, they kind of like glow into that silver effect. Like I was like, whoa, this is what she sees? It's like absolutely incredible. Rwby falls down the hole and sees these lights, but also Neo, who attacks her and shapeshifting into others while attacking. She shapeshifts into Oscar, Yang, and Penny. Rwby and Neo fall further, and Rwby passes out. She then wakes up on a beach with abnormally large seashells. Rwby sees a large tree, then heads to it through the jungle, yet she keeps getting stuck through the same spot, much to her annoyance. She stops and sits down, upset at what is going on, which rain begins to fall on her. She then sees a mouse who is trying to pull something leafy and green out of the ground. She helps pull out the item, seeing that it is a big chunk of cheese. She gives the cheese to the mouse, saying she wishes the mouse could help her. The mouse then speaks, which scares Rwby, and they both scream. Through conversation, Rwby tries to tell the mouse who she is, mostly her name and what it meant. The mouse has no name, so Rwby calls them Little. Little goes by they, them pronoun. Rwby asks Little if they have seen other humans and actually brings up Blake, who is a cat. Blake and Weiss are looking for the others and Blake's weapon. Blake says the others are probably here and wants to know what happened after Rwby and Blake fell, since Weiss was still up on the platform. Weiss pushes this conversation to the side, saying she sees something up ahead. They find Blake's weapon in some vines, which are stubborn and grow more and more, fortifying their efforts. The vines then capture them, and a horde of mice appear, who are happy to capture their prey. Rwby then sees Weiss and Blake, and Little manages to save them both. Blake asks if they have seen Yang, and the leader mouse says no. Little joins them, saying they know the way, but falls asleep on the way, much like the dormouse from Alice in Wonderland who fell asleep during tea time. Rwby tries to get Weiss to answer the question what else happened after they fell, but Weiss continues on. Hearing a noise on the cliff, the girls make it to the top of the cliff and see a Jabberwocker. The Jabberwocker speaks in one-worded sentences and twitches while speaking. Blake and Weiss go to attack, but a familiar voice stops them and Yang shows up. The three corner the monster, who runs off. Rwby and Yang reunite, and Blake goes in for a tackle hug, which was so sweet to see. Weiss sniffles, bring the happy occasion down as she explains what happens, causing Rwby to collapse. Rwby wakes up to the girls talking and Little trying to fan her, which I totally forgot I wrote down, but now I see it and it's like, oh, so cute. The team confirms that they are not dead. Blake then pushes back the vine to reveal multiple landscapes, claiming they might be in a fairy tale. It's like, sorry. Yay, so they're not in Remnant anymore, I guess you could say. All right, episode 2, Altercation at the Auspicious Auction. All right, so the scene then resumes with the girls on the cliff. They're staring at the large tree in the distance. Weiss summarizes their journey so far. Weiss realizes that maybe they are in a fairy tale and storms off to murmur to herself about the situation. She's like, oh, why are we here? What's going on? And all this stuff. Blake realizes it is based off the tale, The Girl Who Fell Through the World, and the story, and the world is ever after, and they start piecing the story together. Little helps guide them to a village where the jinxie peddler has Yang's arm, but falls asleep. Blake warns the group about how Alex, the girl in the story, did not know the customs and started a war. Yang goes over the story of how her arm was stolen, and her and Blake have a moment where they're just flirting and all this stuff. It's absolutely freaking adorable. I was like buzz the whole time. Weiss has a conversation with Rwby about Atlas falling and the relic's whereabouts. The group arrives at a bridge, and Little builds their home by the bridge, but it falls over. That was so cute, the little dance that Little does. Like, I'm gonna live by the bridge, and then Weiss is like, nope, you're coming with us. Like, your home just fell. Come with us, little mouse. All right, so they reach the village, and they find the auction site, and Blake informs the group that they have to barter, but the items are random items in disguise. To barter, the person has to raise their hand and say at you at the same time Jinxie does, then trade something that Jinxie requests. Yang sees something that resembles her arm, but a soldier raises his hand before her. Jinxie requests for Yang to give something that, knowing what it is to feel loved. Yang gasps, and the soldier gets the item. However, Rwby is drawn to a green doll and manages to shout at the same time as Jinxie. Rwby has to fill enough hope to fill a glass jar. Rwby wavers, but Little plans a heist and drags the doll away. However, the doll transforms into one of Penny's swords. The soldier freaks out about Yang's arm and manages to get it from the soldier. Rwby approaches the sword and cries a little bit over it, and the team leaves the town. The team arrives at a clearing where Yang is happy about getting her arm back. Blake is frustrated that they are doing the same thing that Alex did, and Weiss is trying to get to the tree but can't, and throws a rock and hits herself in the head with it. The amount of wasted memes that came out of that was just perfection. Rwby is heartbroken over the sword, and it starts to rain again. The soldiers find the team, and Rwby offers the sword of a once noble and brave warrior to go to the prince's party, just as the book describes. All right, episode 3 is Rude, Red, and Royal. So the team arrives at the castle and meets the Red Prince. The exchange is not as great as Team Rwby wanted, as they are confused why he's not the king. One soldier remarks about their kind, meaning humans, and how rude he was to them. So the team decides to go inside by playing a game since it's the prince's birthday. Like, how about we play a game? And I do want to point out too, gorgeous artwork shot with the butterfly going in and stuff. Mm-hmm. The team decide to play a game to get to the tree. The prince goes over the rules. Players move 1 space per turn. Most pawns to other side of the board wins. Whoever takes the spot has to dispose of whoever occupies it. I think I saw a video kind of comparing it to like Chinese checkers in a way, so I can kind of think of it like that. However, the game is missing pieces, and so the Red Prince manages to shrink Weiss, Blake, and Yang to chess-sized pieces. The game starts. Great animation and music build up, by the way. The chess pieces are not doing so well, so Weiss, Blake, and Yang show off their moves. The prince then questions why does the team want to go to the tree. Rwby says they want to go home, saying that someone they knew saying that someone who came before them managed to get home through the tree, and they want to do the same thing. The prince starts losing the game and displays poor sportsmanship. The prince finds out they are humans, and his face starts to crack. Not only that, but when Rwby says human, a pair of glowing eyes appear behind her. An epic battle commences among Weiss, Blake, Yang, and all the chess pieces, and we get a new song in the background that was in the trailer that I was excited for. It worked so well with the fight scene. My inner Rwby was geeking out during that whole scene. Yang gets to use an ice sword and deals the final blow. The prince rage flips the table, and Rwby says they won, but the prince denies it, ordering for their heads. A blue and purple cat appears out of thin air and calms the prince down. The cat helps Team Rwby escape back outside. The others find out that the cat is a curious cat who loved to ask questions and helped Alex find the tree. Team Rwby then goes after the cat, much to Little's demise. Also, Jabberwocker. Oh, and then towards the end of that episode, the Jabberwocker's home is shown, just as Neo is arriving in the Ever After, who can now clone herself into lots and lots of Neos. And I did want to say too, whoever animated the cat was absolutely amazing and accurate. Just the way that the cat was moving, even like walking down the stairs, like that little and like the way that like the body moved and shifted and all that. It was very cat-like. So, how about that? Sorry, I'm used to talking this much. Let's see. Speaking of cats, episode 4, A Cat Most Curious. Rwby attempts to talk with the curious cat, but he speaks in riddles. It's just, you're not getting a clear answer out of this cat. Rwby asks for help getting to the tree because the cat has been there, but the cat asks what is the purpose of going back, which is something that Little had also remarked earlier, was like, what's the purpose of going back? You know, like, I can only go forward and stuff. Blake mentions Alex, and the curious cat recognizes the name. The group informs how she wrote a book, and it is a childhood tale back in their world. The curious cat wants to learn more about the book, and he also sniffed out Little as well. The group talks about luring the cat to the tree and gets their attention. Rwby tells the cat how they will answer the cat's questions, even showing them her scroll. However, the curious cat asks and talks too much, leaving the group annoyed and exhausted. The group makes it to another bridge and to get to another acre to find the ingredients to bring Weiss, Blake, Yang back to normal size. So they're walking and talking. The cat's asking like 1,000 questions a minute. They're all trying to take turns, and they're getting like really bored and tired of answering all these questions. They get to the acre because they're trying to get Weiss, Blake, and Yang back to their normal size. Alrighty, but as soon as they arrive at the acre, the cat disappears again, and the group finds a large talking caterpillar by a glowing mushroom. The caterpillar introduces themselves as the herbalist. The herbalist asks, "What are you?" And Rwby says she is tired of the question. Rwby asks for help getting to the tree, and the herbalist says everyone needs help getting to the tree. The herbalist invites them into his home. He asks again, what are they, and what does a huntress do? Blake has a better explanation of what a huntress can do, but the herbalist is kind of like, well, I can't help you if you don't even understand yourselves. So he invites them further into his home, and then he uses a potion on the team where they individually are surrounded by dark and multicolored clouds. We then see that each character is faced with a younger version of themselves from Volume 1 appears in front of them. So for each one, Yang is confronted with going back to what she had when she had both arms and be whole again. Blake is confronted about choosing which way she wanted to be, either a cat or a human, because it would be simpler. Weiss is confronted about upholding her shiny legacy and can be a nobody and to be free. All to go back like Little and Curious Cat. But the girls say they want to move forward and that they are indeed a huntress. So they manage to overcome their past selves and be like, no, this is what I want to be. I want to be a huntress. I want to help people. However, Rwby is not having the same type of conversation with her past self. Younger Rwby is optimistic, go-getter type of person, talking about how the books inspired her to become a huntress, much like we learned in Volume 1. Mm-hmm. But Rwby is not feeling it because life isn't like a fairy tale, is what she says. The Curious Cat comes in and breaks up the clouds, telling the herbalist to leave Rwby alone. Curious Cat is disappointed with the herbalist's behavior and helps him by placing like a paw on the herbalist's chest, and then the herbalist disappears into a hole in the ground. And everybody's looking shocked, and Little wakes up from their little nap, and they're like, oh, hey, what's going on here? It's like, Little, you can sleep through anything. Alrighty, Chapter 5, The Parfait Predicament. Alrighty, so this is where we go to a flower lotus town on a lake. So they're riding like a large, like lily pad. That's what the thing's called, like a lily pad. The girls and the Curious Cat, and there's conversation about the ever after rules, in which no one truly dies. That their stories are called back, and then they are returned with their stories and purpose the same as before, or maybe not. Again, this cat only speaks in riddles. I had to go back and watch this scene like 4 times just to be like, do I really understand what's going on here? But the cat says that they ascend. Blake mentions the Red Prince, and the Curious Cat explains that after the prince lost the game to Alex, he got mad, but then he was called back and came back as the Red Prince that the team had met. So he was indeed the Red King before, but after losing the game with Alex,
okay, I'll be out when I can.
So he lost like a title. Alrighty. So now they arrive at the town, which is lovely art again. And Weiss, Blake, and Yang go with the Curious Cat to get the ingredients for the parfait in order to grow back to their regular size. Little and Rwby continue to look for the teapot lady, even though Little falls asleep in the back of Ruby's hood, and it's so cute. These little sleepy sleeps. They're walking around, and they both find a blacksmith shop instead, where Rwby finds Penny's sword again. Rwby meets a blacksmith who is forging some wings. Little wakes up, and the blacksmith asks if Little is her guide, who says yes, and they're there to help Rwby get back home, even though they don't know how to get there, which I feel at that time was Little's purpose, because Little was like, I don't have a purpose. It's like, yes, you do. You're gonna help Rwby and her friends get home. I am a Little stan, can you tell? Let's see. The blacksmith continues to question Rwby about a burden, but Rwby pushes it aside, and the blacksmith offers a weapon to set the burden down, which would be Penny's sword. But the weapon changes to a dagger, and Alex's face appears in the dagger. Rwby notices another weapon on the side, which we all saw in the trailer. However, Summer's reflection appears in the in the thing, which I at first thought was just an older version of Rwby. But I think somebody posted like, "Oh, that's Summer," and I'm like, "Oh, that's Summer." I thought it was actually Rwby, but it doesn't make sense. They both look alike. Alrighty. So right as Summer's reflection appears, it disappears, and the curious cat appears, and the blacksmith disappears. Ooh, I'm not saying that again. They then find the teapot lady, who is voiced by Kaden, who voices May Miracle. And then while they're looking for, I think it was leprechaun nose hairs, a firework display appears behind them, and Yang's all like, "Yay, festival, let's go!" But then the fireworks display the word danger, and people start shouting Jabberwocker, and Yang's like, "Nope, this isn't good. This is not a festival." The teapot lady tries to get their items back, especially the nose hairs that the team needs, and Rwby gives her her emblem in exchange, saying it carries a mother's promise. Curious Cat explains the Jabberwocker is a terrible creature, and if it eats one of them, then there is no coming back and they cannot ascend. They make the parfait. Weiss, Blake, and Yang eat a little bit, and they grow a little bit, but then the Jabberwocker appears, knocking over the girls and the parfait, and the Jabberwocker starts to grow in size. Alrighty. Then we have the mud cooking selling hawk. I don't know if they actually had a name, but there was like a hawk like trying to sell mud cookies when they first arrived and stuff. But he's appeared, and he has like a blue glow thing behind his eyes. The Curious Cat explains that he gave the hawk a new purpose and tells the girls to run. Right when things look dire, a knight with rusted armor riding a rabbit creature with antlers appears and knocks the Jabberwocker back. The girls rush back to the parfait, they eat it, become big again, and then fight alongside the rusted knight, which once again, another banger of a soundtrack behind all the fighting going on. So that's the good music. I'm so excited for the soundtrack when it comes out. Yang delivers the final punch, but the Jabberwocker disappears in illusion of pink pixels. Blake realizes it was Neo-semblance. The knight is shocked, saying there's supposed to only be one Jabberwocker, and tells the girls to run. Rwby is sitting in shock, and Weiss tells them they need to go. They arrive at the top of the Lotus Tower, and Weiss says she wished that every place they came to did not end up in ashes. The girls are passed by the knight, and Blake fangirls. That was really cute to see. The knight tells the rabbit they did good, calling it Juniper. The knight takes off the helmet, revealing a long blonde ponytail tied with a red ribbon, and he turns around. The knight resembles Jean, who recognizes them as Team Rwby and says they finally made it. You a fanboy?
Yes, but you keep going. I'll be right back. There's an important thing I need to run and do quick. I'm just gonna turn off my camera. You keep going. Eek, Jean. Okay, you keep going. Go ahead.
I do have the rusted knight shirt, by the way. So, all right, we're gonna keep rocking and rolling. This is now cosplay tea times out. Alrighty, so chapter 6, we have Confessions with Cumulonimbus Clouds. Can never say it. Sorry. But some kind of cloud. Can't see cloud. And what I want to say is on Twitter, you can find me at Twitter at JenMouse45. I'm gonna promote myself here. No. Was that, usually like a day or two before, because the episodes came out on Saturday, like either Thursday night or Friday, like members of the Rwby team, the voice actresses and actors, will kind of hype up the episode and be like, oh, it's going to be Emo City and all this stuff. But this episode, they were promoting it on like a Tuesday or Wednesday, and they were just like, yeah, you're going to not want to miss this. You're going to want to stay offline and all this stuff. And it was like, what are we about to witness? Weird, no. So they were hyping it up a bit more than usual. Also, because I am a dedicated person who does not skip intros, like some people me. They did change the intro where John's face is now shown.
Excuse me? I heard the thing about cosplay tea time too. Out! No. No, uh, I had to grab my food, so
Woohoo!
I'm gonna still
Nom
be
nom nom.
muted. You keep going. I'm just gonna
Okay.
be eating some yummy chicken and Alfredo.
Ooh, nom nom nom. Sounds delish. Alrighty. Let me see. So yes, so the intro I watched and saw that Jean's face is now shown instead of the Rested Knight's helmet. I apologize to those I doubted about Jean and not being the Rested Knight and all that stuff. I never made memes about it and stuff, but I think I was in a couple group chats where I'm like, Jean's not the Rested Knight. There's no. I apologize. This is my apology video. Anywho, oh, and there was also a flash warning for this episode. So we're gonna get into Jean's how Jean ended in the Ever After, but I do have to say one thing: the black screens were really really annoying to me. There was a lot of like moments where like it would be like 5-7 seconds of just like a black screen. It's like we waited 2 years for this volume. Like why are you all these black screens? Anyway, I was
Mm-hmm.
getting annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. So we see Jean's point of view with him falling into the vast void. We hear Penny's screams, we hear his own cry, and we see a crescent rose on fire falling down, and he lunges for it. We end up on the next scene where he arrives washed up on the beach. He then starts cutting through the forest and spies a tree with odd roots and a clock in the center. The sound of ticking is heard as he approaches the tree. He then grabs the clock and plucks it from the tree. This is when I was like, you probably should not have done that. The clock starts to unwind backwards, and he can see the shooting stars of the others falling. So we have blue for Weiss, red for Rwby, black for Blake, pink for Neo, and yellow for Yang. Jean begs for it all to stop, throwing the clock on the ground, and hits it with his sword. The clock then stops. Jean waits at the beach and, in a transition, becomes older with a beard and longer hair. And I also noticed, too, when one of the artists shared like a storyboard design, you can see that he built a little hut on the beach. Like he wasn't going to move from that beach until the others came. I was like, oh gosh, my heart. Oh, it's too much. Alrighty. So that was all of Jean's backstory, that he's kind of at fault here for everything, like for him being the first to arrive, even though he was the last to fall. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're going to move to the present moment. He told the team that he was waiting for them, and Rwby confirms that it is in fact them, and they all go in for a group hug with little to complete on top of Jean's head. So cute. Again, little stand here. We also had Weiss simping over him. Exactly. Have fun. They all go to the other side of the tower, and the team contemplates all that happened in Atlas. And there's even like a comment about like, that's what General Iron would have said or thought or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Jean notices a storm is approaching. And we also see that Jean is a bit more sterner. Like he kind of takes over like that leadership role more than Rwby. Just kind of like, we need to go. We need to get to my village. We don't want to get caught in the storm. Which I could appreciate because I don't like thunderstorms. So, so as they're walking, they're also talking, and Jean's kind of like, "Wow, I'm glad you guys came all this way from the Crimson Keep and all this stuff. How did you manage it?" And the curious cat is brought up, and this is when we find out Jean is not a cat person, because his demeanor changes very drastically. But before the group can respond, Little's like, "Hey, there's the cat." The cat recognizes Jean, comment about others like you. Oh yeah, I feel like Curious Cat had already met Jean at this point, which we'll get into here in a minute. The storm around them is starting to grow, and Jean is growing impatient, drawing his sword. Jean stops him, saying is a misunderstanding, and the cat is guiding them all to the tree. Jean informs the group that the tree is death, taking memories and making someone into something else, something called ascension. Blake figures that the herbalist was taken by the tree roots. Yang accuses the cat of not telling them, and the cat says that since they are not from here, that they would not be taken by the tree, that they wouldn't be able to ascend or anything like that because they're not from the ever after, they're from a different world. So Jean mentions Lewis, which is a name we had not heard at all in the series, who was Alex's brother, and the team is confused, but the cat pins it back on them, saying that they did not ask. The team has to make a choice to either follow the cat or Jean, and the cat says that they are stuck at a crossroads, and Jean is shocked, reaching out before the screen flashes. Jean welcomes Rwby and Weiss to the Punderstorm, being at a metaphorical and literal crossroad. And we have Weiss Volume 8 moment part 2, where Weiss is like, oh, this place is the pits, and then falls through a hole and everything. And it was like flashback to Volume 8, getting yeeted into a tube thanks to Nora. So, let's see. Rwby realizes Blake and Yang are missing, and Jean mentions they probably had something bigger to sort out together. Blake and Yang are on a windy bridge and have to get to the platform, but they are missing some wooden board pieces to get there. The scene transitions back to Jean, and the girls pick the Jean road. Jean then goes into the story of Alex and her falling into the world, in which while watching, the art style is similar to the Rwby Grimm Fairy Tale short videos that were posted in previous years. Excuse me. Jean mentioned while waiting for the teams to fall, Alex and Lewis arrived to Ever After from Remnant. He then realized he was in Alex's story and was the Rested Knight, but not everything was the same, including Alex, who is selfish and cruel, and Lewis, who is kind and clever. The herbalist was not in the story. Anyway, he was in the story. Why do I have that? Anyway, but whatever the herbalist told Alex, she was not the same and began to lose trust in them. And Jean tried to get the story back on track. And something that really stuck out to me was the line, like, I couldn't even be the make-believe hero. It was just one thing after another. So one night, Alex gives him like a bowl of like soup or a drink or something, and he takes it, accepts it, drinks it, and realizes that he had been poisoned. But in the story, it said the Rested Knight drank the poison in her stead, but really she poisoned him so she could get to the tree. Jean explains that the curious cat can convince others to either perform their role or go to the tree and get a new one, saying it was healing, but it was manipulation. I felt like at that point the cat's purpose was to feed the tree. Rwby and Weiss find out that only one made it back to the world, meaning Alex. So they're trying to figure out what's going on with Lewis. Let's see. And then also during this part, as they're walking and talking in the Punderstorm, there's like these like mirrors on the side, and whenever somebody looks at the mirror, Jean sees Penny, he sees like his younger self. Weiss sees the fall of Atlas, that little music in the background from when Atlas was falling. Oh, chills. And Rwby, you see it for a very, very split second, but you see Summer Rose in her reflection. So, alrighty, let's see. Back to Blake and Yang have to start complimenting one another. All I could think about was that one TikTok, I challenge you to a duel, compliments and all this stuff. So, in order to get to the other side and let the wood board pieces form, and the bigger and more heartfelt the compliment, the more pieces showed up. So, however, at one moment, when mentioning a big truth, the girls are pushed back further. Yang finally realizes what this is all about, and Blake said that it was okay to just say it. This is when I was squeezing my Mitsuri pillow so hard, like, let's go! They then find themselves standing on a platform, and wait, too much. Go back. They both realize that they are falling for one another, and they confess, I love you too, and stuff. They're both standing on a platform. The storm and the wind is gone, and they are surrounded by summer yellow clouds. They both seem shocked at first, then it wears off, and they rush into one another's arms. Then we get to the thing we have all waited for 84 years. The bumblebee kiss. Finally. I know Nora, wherever she was, woke up in a cold sweat like, I know. I sense something in the air. So it is finally canon. It was beautiful, and the song in the background was so sweet. Moving on. Back to Jean, Weiss, and Rwby and how they confronted the curious cat, finding out that the cat knew the story, finding out the real truth about the tree and how Alex tricked him. And the cat realizes that they were doing the same. So there's a lot of, you did this and you didn't do that. Blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of that. The cat then leaves and the group arrives back in the Ever After and they see Yang and Blake kissing. Jean said he waited a long time for that. And I was like, in Volume 7, you didn't even pick up that Yang was, or volume 8, excuse me, like Yang was hinting at Blake. You said Rwby, so sure, Johnny boy. They arrive at Jean's home. Jean hands Rwby Crescent Rose, who does not take it out. Rwby asks Jean about what happened to Lewis, and Jean says Alex traded him to the tree and wrote him out of the story. And see. It kind of also left me questioning, like, is the cat the villain or is the tree the villain? So we'll get into that. Springy, you have your hand up.
Would you say that the kiss was beautiful?
But
I'll leave now.
It was a beautiful moment that Nora missed out on, but I'm sure she'll have other moments. As soon as like they arrive back, Nora's going to start planning their wedding. I see it.
Yes.
I see it happen. She's like, I found my purpose. Who just Nora's? I'm going to go plan my friend's wedding.
Yes.
Alrighty. So we had some lighthearted moments. We've had some adventures. We've had some shell-shocking moments. And now we are on Chapter 7, The Perils of Paper Houses. And I will say, this is where one of the warnings come up that some themes may be troubling for some folks. So it starts out with, I have Judy, JWBY sleeping. Ruby's there too. And Little, of course, Little's sleeping. Little's just a baby. Anyway, so they're all sleeping, and Ruby's awake. However, a loud boom is heard, and Jean wakes up with a start saying that he's late. So, kind of reference with the White Rabbit, who always had like the little pocket watch running around, like, saying, I'm late, I'm gonna be late, and all this stuff. The village below Jean's house is on fire. Jean says he overslept, which he never really does, and tells the girls to go down to the town that he'll meet them there. Rwby grabs Crescent Rose after some prompting, and they head to the village. When the girls arrive, they realize that the town is made of paper, and they are greeted by a villager who asks how they can serve the girls. The girls are stunned because they should be helping the village since it is caught on fire, but Jean comes riding on Juniper and stops the fire. Jean talks with the team about the paper pleasers, hospitable afterins that look after others and make the land beautiful and are peaceful creatures. Also, again, plushies, Rooster Teeth plushies, that's all I ask for. He saves one from the wind, giving it rocks to kind of keep it in place, and he calls the paper pleaser Ren. Weiss is aghast that Jean named them after the teammates, but Jean said he named them after everybody. A red one appears, saying they are called Rwby. I thought it would have been named Pyrrha. I was ready to cry at that moment, but when they introduce themselves, everybody's like, oh, I'm saved. And then Jean suggests brunch after listing off a whole list of catastrophes that could happen. He's like, let's go grab some brunch. Alrighty, so at the brunch table, we finally get a map of the place. Of course, not every acre is scouted out and written down, but at least we know like some of them. Some are familiar. Some I was curious about, like the pyramids and the volcano and all that. So we finally get a map. Jean says he has been looking for a way home, and the girls are doubting him. Sorry. Jean has not been able to solve the issue because he has been helping the villagers to not get in trouble. Here's where my theory started about him wanting to be the town hero, which we'll see here in a minute. It is here that Jean suggests that the team watch the paper pleasers while he continues questing for a way home. And we get a hefty to-do list. We have run by the Lotus Pond. Nora with the lightning, Oscar with the kite, and of course Pyrrha with the homework with the smiley face. I was like, oh my gosh, the heart. So, yeah. Jean gets impatient, saying that he is not crazy, and cheers up, saying he wants to show the team around and to meet the paper pleasers, especially Neptune. Little looks at Rwby with concern and cuteness. So cute. The girls are not liking Jean's plan, and Weiss mentions how the tree could kill them or send them back when they are interrupted by the purple paper pleaser, which we never know their name, saying that the tree does not kill. The purple paper pleaser goes on to explain that their work has been done for quite some time, and they want to make something else that is pleasing and resilient. They want to return back to the tree and ascend so they can get this new purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But the rested night has prevented them from doing so, stopping their plans to reach out to the tree or ending their current selves to then be given a new and different purpose. Something that stood out to me about the purple paper pleaser, yay, alliteration, it's a thing, is that the line, our hero is clever and brave, it's kind of slow and sarcastic, the hero in this sentence being Jean. Like, our hero is so clever and brave and all this stuff. Like, I think they've had enough of Jean. So the paper pleaser then explains that the tree rebuilds and resurrects. The fact that the paper pleasers were trying to harm themselves and then Jean stopped them, thinking he was heroic, I was like, that's pretty deep and dark. Like, for a very bright and colorful place, that was pretty dark in that moment.
It can't get any darker.
Oh no. Hold on to your hats. Let's see. So they knew they wanted to go to the tree and put themselves at risk, and John saw as like klutzy, even though he used to be klutzy and awkward too in the first couple volumes. So it's like, really, dude. The tree says that the purple paper pleaser says that they want to return home, a feeling the team is familiar with. Weiss, Blake, and Yang talk about the tree, the story, and Weiss mentions how Jean is not there. Jean overhears the last statement and leaves them. The girls try to explain that the people pleasers needed to ascend, and Jean says that he is here because he feels like he could protect the paper pleasers. He's lost so much with Pyrrha, Penny, his teammates he doesn't know about. All these like feelings build up, but now he has the paper pleasers that he can protect and appear like a hero. Especially after what happened with Alex and everything, which I feel happened before he arrived. So, yeah. I was like, oh, this poor man, so much. So as they're standing, outside the little hut restaurant thing, they hear a commotion above them. Jean's home is destroyed by multiple Jabberwockers. A fight breaks out. I wasn't crazy about the animation on this one. This one felt a bit slowly animated. But I did like Weiss breaking her form, like she was always in like volume 1, like, have your foot pointed and like your arm up and all this stuff. But there was like a couple moments where she was like, she like spun a couple times, she almost fell off one of her cliffs and stuff. So it's kind of like, oh, that's different. Let's see, and then she got Jean's sword back to him. The song was good, a bit slower, not as pumped up as the fight in episode 3. Rwby stands still, watching, holding Crescent Rose. A Jabberwocker approaches her, and she sees the face of Cinder, Penny, when she was infected by the virus, and Salem. Rwby freezes upon seeing Salem, and the girls rush over to help her. Neo then appears, pointing at Rwby before shattering. Yang questions how did Neo get to be so powerful, and Jean says she didn't do it by standing around. Jean attempts to hand Rwby back Crescent Rose, saying she can protect her friends, but Rwby steps back and Crescent Rose falls to the ground. They all look to her in confusion, but before she is questioned, a loud boom is heard, and the Pebble Tower starts to topple over and into the dam. Water breaks loose, and Jean freaks out. The water cannot be stopped, and the paper dissolves. The girls go over to comfort Jean, as he knew he was supposed to save the paper pleasers. Yang lets him know that they will be back. Weiss confirms this and asks Rwby if this is correct. Rwby then asks, why are you asking me? This is where we get emo. This is where a lot of folks were waiting for this moment that Rwby just emotionally snaps. they're all surprised at this. Rwby, the optimistic team leader, we'll get the job done, we'll do the right thing, all of a sudden is going off on everybody. They're all surprised, and Rwby goes on to ask about her leadership, asking why people don't ask about her. Rwby starts to go off and says that maybe they all needed someone who knew what they were doing. Rwby approaches Yang and Blake, saying that they had to stay positive, work their feelings out, and the line delivery on, "We are so happy for you." Yang protects Blake from Rwby, but Rwby continues bringing Jean into the mix about his make-believe friends. Jean gets up from where he was kneeling and starts telling Rwby that they were gone because of her, because the Jabberwockers came from her, for her, because Neo hated her. Jean goes on about why they were in the ever after, saying it was all about Rwby. Weiss steps in. Jean apologizes and says that he was alone for so long. Jean talks about that moment on the bridge, how alone he felt, which I feel like Weiss knew about and Blake and Yang kind of sort of know about. Blake starts to talk about how things are bad, but they gotta keep going, but is interrupted by Rwby saying, "Shut up." Rwby says to not say such things. She picks up Crescent Rose, has Little in tow in her little hood, and uses her semblance to speed away. The girls look after her in surprise, while Jean and Juniper look over onto the fallen village. That was hefty. Wish they got a few more. Yeah.
Yeah.
You ready for the next one?
No. Yeah. All I wanted to say was, if you thought that was bad, whew. I'm also talking to give Jen a second to rest because she's saying 18 times more than I was, so I'm letting her take a second to drink some water. Excuse me. My food is also very good. It was chicken Alfredo with noodles. It was really good. I'm happy now. But yeah, if you are ready, if you are mentally prepared for content warning,
yes,
audience
again,
advised.
heavy themes. Alrighty, so start with the scene from Rwby's point of view running through the woods. Rwby takes a break to sit by a tree again, and Little comes out to talk with Rwby. Little attempts to comfort Rwby, but Rwby doesn't want to hear anything right now. Rwby tells Little to leave and walks off. So Rwby wanders for a while. She finds a bridge and arrives at a mansion. She sees photos of young Neo with Salem, and Neo with Roman. However, the Roman starts talking, much to Rwby's surprise. Rwby demands for Neo, but Roman says that is not good manners and how she should greet everyone who came to see her. She turns around to see the table is Penny, Pyrrha, Leonard Lionheart from Volume 5, Clover from Ace Ops, Ozpin, and General Ironwood. They all greet Rwby, who then asks if this was all real. Roman tells her she is the one following a talking cat around a fairy tale, and he stands on the table. Roman talks about how Neo always wanted a place to hide away from everything and do whatever she wanted. Similar to how the girl who fell through the world, she wanted to do whatever she wanted. So in Roman Holiday, which I cover on my main channel, it was actually revealed in Roman Holiday that the girl who fell through the world was in fact Neo's favorite fairy tale. Little shows up on top of a chandelier and listens in as Roman explains how heroes in stories and their importance and all this stuff, just as the others' eyes at the table start to go one pink and one brown, just like Neo's. Roman produces a leaf similar to the one Rwby saw earlier outside and at the herbalist and puts it in a cup of colorful tea. Rwby says that if Neo wants her to be dead, she should just kill her, but Roman says Rwby deserves to be broken down and wiped from existence. Rwby hears Neo behind her, and using Crescent Rose fires at Neo, who leaps into the air, yet Roman fires a shot at Ruby's feet. Neo lands gracefully in front of Roman, and the others at the table clap. Meanwhile, Jean, Weiss, Blake, and Yang are looking for Rwby, and Weiss realizes how much they depended on Rwby and her leadership. They then hear gunfire and clashes in the distance. Back at the mansion, Pyrrha tells Rwby how she traded her life so her friends could live. Well, that line was really painful to hear when rewatching this. I was like, oh, no, Pyrrha, you wouldn't say things like that. And then we have Penny confronts Rwby about how Rwby was too late to save Penny twice. Oh, my little nuts and bolts heart could not handle the pain. Roman cuts in and asks Rwby if she's ready for the drink. Pyrrha confronts Rwby and asks her how many more people must die because of Rwby. Rwby says she is trying to save everyone, but General Ironwood confronts her, saying that she wasn't doing a very good job at that. She is then tossed aside, to which, here we go with the heavy stuff, Ozpin delivers blows onto her physically and mentally, which was very painful to watch because he always saw her as a beacon of hope early on. So to see that was pretty not good on my part. Rwby reaches for her weapon and swings it, but the illusion changed to Oscar, who was slashed, and he falls to the ground. Roman's talking in the background. Penny shapeshifts into Jean, Clover to Crow, Lionheart to Blake, General Ironwood to Weiss, and Pyrrha to Volume 7 Jean. And Ren and Nora are also there. This is the only time we're going to see Nora. Once again, 2 nickels. I have 2 nickels the time that Neo is shapeshifted into Nora. Oh, gosh. Getting a weird text. Sorry. Let's see. Roman tells her the world would be better off without her. Rwby cries, and Neo presents to her the cup of tea. Just then, Neo is taken out by a familiar pattern of blue and purple. Ruby's perspective again, and the curious cat is there, comforting her. Rwby apologizes and says she does not want to be her anymore. The cat shushes her fondly, gets on her chest, and calls her a little huntress. However, they then shift their tone and says that they could not wait to break Rwby down, that they were waiting for this moment. That when a heart is broken, they can fill it with what is in their heart. So he starts, putting his paws into Rwby, he's trying to take over her and whatnot. Ruby's crying out in pain. The cat says, I am cursed with curiosity. And they also mention, they're trying to figure out why my maker has left me here. And I was like, who's your maker? Is that the gods? God of darkness that started Remnant? So many questions are going on. This was such a question-filled episode. However, Lil shows up and bites the curious cat on the tail. Neo reappears, because the curious cat had pushed her off to the side. And the cat tries to fight Neo off with the glitch meow, is what I call it, a glitch meow. Little goes to Rwby. They start grabbing Ruby's finger, tries to pull Rwby up, trying to say, we have to go, let's go. But then Neo comes in and steps on Little, crushing them. And you could see in the next shot, the light fades from Ruby's eyes, and Neo pushes the teacup back into Ruby's face. And I'm not forgiving Neo for that either. I want to state that loud and clear. This little stand was absolutely, wrong term to use, crushed when Neo did that to Little. But yeah, I was heartbroken. I'll put it that way. Sorry, Springy. Roman says it's about time we all get what we deserve. At that point, Jean, Juniper, Weiss, Blake, and Yang show up just as Rwby drinks the tea, as Roman says the world would be better off without you. Rwby and Little fall into the hole. Neo starts feeling conflicted as Roman triumphs about Rwby being gone, and how they could take over this world as well, the ever after. Curious Cat is desperate to get Rwby back, saying they needed her. Cat communicates to the tree. There's kind of this awkward moment where the cat just kind of glances over at the tree and then looks at Neo, and you're just oh no, what's about to happen? Neo is sitting in a chair. She's staring blankly ahead of her. Jean demands the Curious Cats to get Rwby back. Cat says they still don't get it, that they can only go if they know the place. Kat looks at Nia, saying they found a solution to their problems. Jean stands in front of Weiss, Blake, and Yang as Curious Cat lets out a glitch meow at them. Curious Cat evolves bigger and white color with black diamond shapes. Curious Cat faces Nia, and he says that this is an empty host that could fill the Curious Cat's needs. He then starts to put their paw inside Nia's mouth, and Jean charges for them but misses the Curious Cat's tail. I was thinking at that point too, like, was there like a similar type of thing that happened with like Jean and Louis? Like, did Louis experience like a similar fate? Like, so many questions. However, the Curious Cat enters Neo. Nothing that way. Neo and the Curious Cat become one. Sorry, Springy. I know. Sorry. Didn't mean like that. Anywho. Neo and the Curious Cat then move out of the mansion, and the tree appears in the background. I also want to say, too, that this episode was in loving memory of Billy Kamat, who voiced Roman Torchwick. So, that was episode 8. A lot happened.
I hope people know that I deal with like weird things like this with humor. So if I make a lot of jokes or like, pretending to, because I'm trying to be funny, I know it's a serious topic. That's how I deal with serious topics. So make a joke out of it. That's how I do it. I know it's not best, but that's what people know. I'm not an asshole, I promise.
Oh. You're fine. Alrighty, so and try to move along quickly. Especially with episode 9. There wasn't too much. I think it's episode 10. Yeah, it's going to be the longest one. So, episode 9, A Tale Involving a Tree. So, in the opening, we hear the narrator from before talking about the fairy tale. And we hear the last question, what are you? We see a woman reading to young Yang and Rwby, who are sleeping. And the scene fades to Rwby in a tree, wood-like sculpture. Jean, Juniper, Weiss, Blake, and Yang go back to the flooded Paper Pleaser's home. Jean says he does not understand for what he did wrong. Weiss comforts him, and the group is greeted by a star-shaped crystal. Jean asks, what are you? And they introduce themselves saying they are the genial gems. Genial gems, I think. Crunchyroll didn't have closed captioning, and it's really hard for me to hear sometimes, so I couldn't really tell, but Rwby Wiki is your answer to everything. And their purpose was to clean up the land and create something pleasing. The gems start to clean up and make a sculpture. There's a new song in the background playing. Weiss, Blake, and Yang realize it is the Paper Pleasers from before, and Jean realized he had tried so hard to save them and stop them from becoming what they needed to be and wanted that like hero rush, like that adrenaline. Weiss says that they were too hard on themselves, that even the greatest huntsmen and huntresses also lost battles, but that they kept going. Jean realized that the cat was right, and the scene transforms to a forest, and they find the herbalist also there. Oh, I really did skip ahead, didn't I? Anyway, so they go from the Paper Pleaser's home. Jean realizes like the cat's line, it's not a place you go, it's a place you know. At that point, they all understand what they needed to do and where they needed to be, that they then moved into like a forest-like setting. And not only that, while they're there kind of searching the branches and the leaves and stuff, Yang spies Rwby, who's in the wood-like sculpture. Yang tries to clear away the brushes, and Jean goes to her saying that the tree brought them there because they needed its acceptance. Weiss says it is up for Rwby to decide, which Yang says, what happens if she doesn't come back the same? What if she's something different? And Blake tries to comfort her. Herbalist emerges with new wings. Blake says that's not for them to decide. And then it cuts to Rwby in a greenish void with sparkle lights. And that's where she finds the blacksmith again. So return of the blacksmith, yay! The blacksmith says that Rwby has a choice to make, but realizes that Rwby does not know what she wants. We then see Jean, Juniper, Weiss, Blake, and Yang back in the forest, where they find the door to get to their next destination. I wasn't really happy with how they found that door. I feel like it was a little bit too quick, but we'll get into that later on. However, as they find the door, you also find Neo, Curious Cat, figure trying to get through, but they can't get through the through the door because the Curious Cat realized that Neo doesn't have anything left in Remnant, that Neo already found her purpose. There is no need for Neo to go back. So Curious Cat says it's similar to like how what happened with Alex. So that Lewis made it through, but Alex did not want to because she had no attachment to the world and wanted to make things right in the ever after. It is revealed that the Curious Cat killed Alex because Alex failed to deliver on her promise of bringing the Curious Cat to Remnant. The Curious Cat is about to fight them when they notice Rwby and finds out their plans could be resolved once they pry Rwby away from the tree. The team says that's not going to happen, and a fight breaks out. Rwby and the blacksmith talk about what Rwby wanted, to be a hero, like the story her mother always read to her, and to do the right thing. But there is no such thing. But Rwby feels that she has done more harm than good. She does not know who she could be. The blacksmith reveals multiple and various weapons from various and previous warriors. Back at the fight, Jean accuses the cat of murdering Alex. The two fight, and Jean appears to have the upper hand when the Curious Cat turns into Penny on the ground. Jean falters, and then Apira appears behind him, slashing him. Curious Cat gets upper hand, and Weiss notices, blasting a fire dust towards the cat. The cat dodges it, and it hits Jean, knocking him off the tree. Rwby looks at the weapons, questioning who did they belong to, but the blacksmith says it matters who could wield the weapon. Rwby says everything feels heavy and how she is not enough and how it does not go away. The blacksmith says, how do you measure enough? And that line really stuck out to me. I think I had it as like my Discord status. Like, how do you measure that you're enough? Rwby is drawn to the same weapon as before, and the narrator's voice plays in the background of What Are You? It is also revealed that the narrator is also Summer Rose. So we finally get our Summer Rose. I gotta prepare myself for the big one.
Just one more.
The great one.
Oh, great episode. Yes, I'm excited.
All right. Here we go. Thanks for sticking with us. Chapter 10 of Solitude and Self. So, once again, Summer Rose is narrating the story to a slumbering little Yang and Rwby Rose on their little beds. Summer gets up from reading the book. She puts the book down. She also takes off her emblem, something that I caught the 5th time rewatching, that she actually takes off her emblem, puts it on the book, and tells the sleeping girls that she loves them just the way they are. Summer goes downstairs, and Ty comes down and sees her leaving. They talk about Ozpin making a joke, and how Summer is being sent on another patrol. Sure, Summer. The two hug, not kiss. And Ty knows that she will be back. He's confident that she'll come back home. Summer heads out into the night forest and whatnot, and we see Raven. Such a surprise. I was like, I haven't seen you for a few episodes, even though it's like a flashback, but still. Craziness. Let's see. Yeah, first time we've seen her in 4 volumes. I counted. Raven asks if, anybody suspects anything, which means Summer lied about where she is going and what she will be doing. I was like, oh, this isn't good. Raven opens a portal and the two step inside. And I had to remember Raven has portals to Yang, Pro, and Tai. And because, Yang's sleeping, if they go to Tai, they'd probably be in big trouble. So I have a feeling they probably went to wherever Crow went. Unless she has like a 4th portal to somebody else. I don't know. But that's my theory. And then we then go back to Ruby Rose, who saw that flashback. Rwby is disheartened to learn that her mother lied and pushes the glass case with her mother's weapon in it over. Rwby wonders if she is supposed to learn her lesson of giving up and become something else when the blacksmith asks her, "Is that what I'm telling you?" Blacksmith was a little bit sassy, but she was like cool sassy. So props. We then go back to Jean, who did not perish from the fall of the cliff. I mean, I knew that. People were like, "Oh my gosh, he's gone." I'm like, no, he lived. He lived. He's fine. He's got armor. He's fine. All right, so it goes back to Jean, which flickers past his old self and current self. Then a voice is heard, "You never were the hero," a line we heard in the trailer and finally hear in the last episode. But it's Alex's voice saying that he didn't save her. Jean kind of accepts that, and Alex offers that he becomes the man he always wanted to be. He takes her hand and he pushes past the smoky screen and hears the fighting going on up above. Curious cat / Neo figures and the others fight, and we get freezer burn again, which I was so excited to see. Jean cuts the tree and tells the girls to burn the leaves. The curious cat chuckles, saying the leaves do not affect them. But Jean says that is not the case for Neo, and the music changes. As Neo feels her feelings, the curious cat escapes from her, and Neo stumbles down and collapses. So now the two are separate. The curious cat transforms into a monster. Back in the tree, the blacksmith says Rwby is running out of time and to choose. There's some lovely music in the background, by the way. So it's kind of like, choose, decide. There's fighting going on. Jean gets hit really hard. He loses some of his aura. Juniper rushes in to protect him. Rwby kneels in defeat in front of a dagger, but a red glow appears behind her. She then hears her mother's voice saying how she loves her just the way she is. Rwby approaches Crescent Rose, and Rwby says, "I choose to be me." Rwby reaches out her hand, the branches crack, and red like roses starts to play. Again, Rwby keep coming out. As Rwby accepts Crescent Rose and herself, a blast comes from like the tree and everything, and we see the Volume 1 silhouette from like the red trailer, and Rwby stands in front of them. Totally epic. Rwby then fights the Curious Cat with the new song, which is Red Like Roses Part 3. Let's go! The other girls join, and they take down the Curious Cat. One part I liked was Weiss's glyphs, and how they kind of like bounced around each other. You can see these different colors. From there, the monster form of the Curious Cat is done. Probably spent, very low energy. The Curious Cat then accuses Rwby, saying like, "You break everything you touch. Nobody's going to look up to you," and all this stuff. But the girls stand up for Rwby, saying that they would follow her no matter what. Rwby says they are going to Remnant and that the Curious Cat is staying there. Boom, mic drop. Curious Cat charges from behind, but is stopped by a pack of multiple Jabberwockers. And nom nom. I'll put it that way. Nom nom nom. So the girls are horrified. They're like, "Where did these Jabberwockers come from?" They look over, and Neo had managed to summon them with her semblance. So I think it was a little bit too quick on how to defeat the Curious Cat, but well, yeah, I feel like Neo had that coming with them. So girls rush over to Jean with Rwby looking back at Neo, and I was like, "Don't you dare. She does not deserve redemption, not after everything she's put you through." So Neo looks a bit sad that she is left out of the group hug. Roman appears asking if she wants what they have, but she reaches out to touch his cheek, and he knows he is not real. Let's see. So then, instead of Neo attacking them, Neo takes off her hat and bows, and then floats away. Rwby says that Neo will find herself, and Neo becomes a part of the tree. And not only that, if you watch the episode, you'll see that the leaves behind Neo is actually a part of her parasol. So I thought that was a very nice detail. So Rwby says that she did not see Little, after she fell and was talking with the blacksmith and whatnot. Blake wonders if they made things worse in the story, but Rwby believes that they did a little good. They then hear a familiar voice, and here comes a mouse, a fairly large mouse, walking on two legs, coming towards them. Um, but we all know that it's Little, so they're quite bigger. They wear a scarf and belts. Little does not remember Rwby and the team or what they are, so the girls offer to provide what this afternoon is supposed to be. They say a friend, a guide, protector, and adorable, of course. And after a new name of Somewhat, because they are somewhat of a lot of things, and then insert Den Ugly Crying here, Rwby says that they have done so much than they know. And Somewhat says Rwby does feel familiar, to which Rwby responds with that Somewhat helped her, and that they would continue to help others. But that they now have to say goodbye. This is where I again start ugly crying here. Like, oh no. Somewhat calls Rwby a huntress, and Jean asks Somewhat to help look after Juniper, referring to Juniper as she/her. And I was like, excuse me? What? I pretty much referred every single afternoon as they/them. So I just thought, hey, Juniper, they, them, whatever. But when Jean said, oh yeah, can you look after her? I'm like, wait, what? But. I know there's no closed captionings and all that stuff, but my goodness. So it was a surprise. Someone and Juniper leave. We kind of see Jean looking back, kind of wipes away the tears, but they all, holding hands, walk through the door to where the blacksmith is. The blacksmith is working on figures of the Afterans. Blake asks Rwby if this is the tree, and Rwby says something like that. Blacksmith says they were waiting a long time for Jean. Jean wants to know if it is true about what the cat said about Lewis, and Blacksmith confirms that they told the story of how he wished it had happened. Weiss and Rwby recognize the brothers, and the blacksmith says yes. So there's like these little figurines and whatnot. Jean's finding out the truth about the story that Lewis made it through the tree and Alex didn't, that Lewis wrote the story on his sister's behalf. But Weiss and Rwby notice the dragon figures of the God Brothers. So now we get the God's lore, which we got a little bit in Volume 6, but now we get more, so yay. We find out that the Ever After was overgrown and filled with lots of wildlife. The brothers were made to destroy what needed to be taken care of and grow what was needed. They were given creativity, given the Actorins homes and roles. Weiss wonders how did Remnick come to be then? Brothers wanted to do more and created the Curious Cat, which can do the job for them, which was the Curious Cat helping broken hearts in the Ever After. Then finish what the cat started, which was the Jabberwockers. You have the Curious Cat and the Jabberwocker. They were kind of doing their jobs and whatnot. Ira the blacksmith talks about balance and how it finds its own equilibrium and requires love and patience to see things through at the end. The brothers did not create an equal balance like what Team Rwby has. The Ever After could not take their creations, and the tree created a door for them to go forth and create a new world. It remains open, which means we'll definitely see the brothers again, which I will get to here in a second. So that is how the gods came to Remnant. I always thought at the beginning, like they were there since the beginning of time, but it actually turns out they lived in the Ever After. They were created in the Ever After. And because they were just destroying, creating, the tree was like, I've had enough with you two. Out. So there's just, the tree was like, not in the mood. Go, shoot. Pretty much. Alrighty. Jean realizes Alex broke the promise to the cat to come to Remnant. A terrible thing to have a broken heart, and there was no one to send them back to the tree for repair. It was the line that was used. Rwby asks about Neo, who will be repaired and have the chance to become something new, such as balance. Jean takes Alex's knife, which was left by Alex to help fix something she had broken, similar to taking Pierre's circlet and weapons and using it to enhance his own weapons. Jean reemerges as his younger self. Yes. Let's go, yes. Oh, I'm sorry, the rest of the night was just too much. He is a little bit upset about his voice, but he has his hair back, his regular armor, and he has like white streaks in his hair as well. So Blacksmith opens a portal similar to what we saw in Volume 8. Rwby asks, "Where will this take us?" And the blacksmith says, "Not where, but when you are needed most." Everyone steps through, with Rwby saying thank you to the blacksmith. The group arrives in Makio, a sunlit place covered with sand, ships in the sky, and possibly Amity Tower. I love the music at the end. This will be the day. Instrumental, absolutely lovely. And for this volume, there was no end credit scene like in other volumes, but we did get a trailer for the Rwby and Justice League movie. And that concludes Rwby Volume 9. Ooh. I'll give my final thoughts here in a second. I need to
hydrate.
Hydrate.
Yes. That video will be coming on next week. Maybe next week? In a few weeks. The next Demon Media after this one is us reviewing Justice League and Rwby. So yeah. And at the time, the week after, no, it was like that weekend or like that Monday is when the Justice League and Rwby thing premiered on both streaming and in stores, because I bought it on streaming and then I went to stores and I bought it because I wasn't expecting it right there. Our Walmart sucks. Like with like getting new stuff out like the day of these new DVDs are out.
Yeah,
was not expecting that, but
I don't go to my Walmart often, but
I definitely enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole thing. My only major negative thought is that if you're going to do like a grand rewatch for like plot reasons, like if you're only going to watch stuff for the plot, you could have probably skipped this volume 9, except for like maybe the last 2 to actually like get that, you know, lore of the gods and figure out how they actually got back. But like in the grand scheme of like if you wanted to do a grand rewatch before volume 10, volume 9 you can skip, but it is very good. I see it much more as somewhat filler, but it's still very good in my personal opinion. But I still enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the rest of the night enough that I'm planning on cosplaying him, spending all my money, handing it to a random man on the internet, and him sending me pictures of the armor so far. And I'm my back, Jesus. I'm old. I enjoyed the volume a lot. Excuse me. I'm trying to. You can say your final thoughts.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Yes. So this was probably my second favorite volume. My first volume will forever and always be Volume 4. That's like my favorite one. But this I really enjoyed. So here are some of my final thoughts. I feel like it might start a bit slow. Like the teams are trying to get back to one another. They're trying to get their bearings. Some of the fight scenes and there's good interactions, and it plays out like a storybook. So you kind of have to set the mood, the scenery, the characters, and then get into trouble and then fight the good fight at the end. So it's pretty classic Rwby type of stuff. Yang and Ruby's relationship. I feel like back in Volume 8, Yang did try to initiate like that big sister talk, like, we're here for you, got this, especially with what happened after the Hound. And then, Yang protected Rwby from Neo's attack. They find blah, 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 blah. I mean, there's like a brief moment of like them having like a moment. In like the first chapter where like, she's like, you forgot like who we are, like Rwby talking to Yang and stuff. But like throughout the whole thing, like Yang's not really there for Rwby as much. But towards the end, I think it all comes together. So I kind of want to see more sister interaction in the future. Let's see. Yeah, it's only after Rwby finds Penny's sword and the herbalist that then the relationship starts to change. So there's a lot going on there. I loved how lines from the fairy tale book were quoted during the volume. I'm really hoping one day that E.C. Myers and all the writers come together and they just like do like a girl who fell through the world type of story. And then we can like compare notes, like what was true, what was not true, and all this stuff. So that would be really fun. It was pretty crazy at first hearing about Lewis, like what happened to Lewis, like it's so dark and all this stuff. It kind of reminded me like how dark and bleak everything can be in Rwby. Like it's not your classic, not sponsored by like Disney or anything like that. It's not a Disney ending where like everybody lives happily ever after. It's Rwby. It's these grim fairy tales and whatnot. And that's what, yeah. And that's what drew me to Rwby in the first place, was like, wow, like this is pretty dark and serious and scary, and kind of keeps you on your toes and speculating like what's going to happen and all this stuff. So but the world's much darker and crueler. Yeah. Let's see. I loved how Weiss, Blake, and Yang confronted their younger selves, and they were able to move forward. They were like, I'm not going to go back into the past. I'm going to become who I want to be. So there's a lot of there's good mental health moments, maybe not so much, and that's why we need viewer discretion. But there are good moments like that, finding your true self, finding out your self-worth, and everything like that. So it is funny because personally, I was not going through a very good time while Rwby Volume 9 was premiering and whatnot. I was going through a rough patch in my own personal life. The only thing that was getting me through was to get to Saturday so I could watch Rwby and figure out what the heck was going on with my characters. But like seeing them like being confronted with themselves and like, who am I going to be? What are you? What am I? And it was like I was going through that, watching my favorite characters going through that. I'm just like, it was a lot. And it kind of reinforced that social support is key with mental health. You want to be there for somebody, to listen to somebody, and whatnot. I feel like Rwby was taking a lot of pressure with being a leader. She wasn't being checked in on, and it built up over time. I've noticed with Ruby's character, she tends to hide all those feelings, especially since after the fall in Volume 4, you kind of see her keep everything locked up inside. That she keeps going forward because that's what people expect from her teammates, other people, and all that. But then she reached her breaking point where she lashed out and gave up and all that. Eventually she does find herself, she chooses herself and whatnot, but she reached that breaking point at the expense of everybody else. But I think that hug at the end is all forgiven. So okay, I did want to tie this in. I don't think the writers of Rwby, no, I'm not a writer of Rwby, is pulling from the Chronicles of Narnia series, but I love the Chronicles of Narnia. So good. But I was really getting like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe vibes whenever whenever the children like go back to their world, they revert back to their younger selves, kind of like Jean. So I'm wondering if there ever comes a day where we get the final volume of Rwby. That the last Narnia book is called The Last Battle, and towards the end of that book is when all the Narnians come together. The children, they all arrive in front of Aslan, who is the creator of the world. And I'm wondering if that's going to happen with like Rwby and like all the teams. Like, the brothers will come back either to the Ever After or Remnant, wherever that may be, and that there will be like that last battle moment like in front of like the brothers and stuff. So that's my theory. But in Volume 9, we saw a lot of beautiful artwork, gorgeous scenery, love the details. We had a really good soundtrack. We had some quiet sounds. We had awesome vocals. I definitely feel like we will see Neo again. I think she will come back. And we have lots of open plot holes, especially with like what happened with Summer and Raven. Where were they headed? We got the other team. When are we in Vacchio? Like, has months passed, years passed? There's just so many questions. I'm becoming the curious cat. Wearing them on my shirt. And then lastly, to conclude, is hopes for Volume 10. I do want to see Crow again. I also want to see the flashbacks of Summer. It's like Crow, Summer, and Raven. Maybe Ozpin, where they kind of like fight off Salem. Because at some point, Salem said she met Summer, and your mother said those exact same words to me, and all this stuff. So I'm hoping for something there. And then maybe the maiden was there and that's how Raven got the powers. So I'm hoping to see a little bit more of what happened there. And also too just seeing Nora Valkyrie again. My baby. I crave, I will, I desire. Give her. Give me. I was so heartbroken, like watching like the final scene, like they're in vacuum. Where's Nora? Where's Nora? And then it just like ended. I'm like, are you kidding me? How much longer should I wait? Like, come on, man. But yeah, seeing them again, seeing Team Coffee again. We haven't seen them since Volume 3, unless you've read the books and you know what's going on and all this stuff. So we get to see Professor Rumpel. In the book before the dawn, Sun has a cousin who has like a dojo there. So yeah, there's I feel like with volume 9 they did kind of sort of condense the characters, like do the backstories. We're gonna have a lot more characters to cover in Vacuum, especially since there's like airships. I'm pretty sure that's Amity Tower, and if so, Petra and Maria are on there. So there's gonna be I feel like the first episode is gonna be nothing but a reunion.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that as a fact. I'm thinking out loud because I do that.
That's an Ed Sheeran song.
Oh.
Sorry, I said that because people call me Ed Sheeran and I want to make a joke. I want to make a joke to it, okay? I'm sorry.
Oh, gosh. No, you're fine. So, yeah, that's kind of my idea right now is that the first chapter of Volume 10 is going to be nothing but a reunion.
Mm-hmm.
So, and seeing characters, hopefully some new designs, figuring out the story, and then, like, what are the teams going to do? So, I'm excited. Green Light Volume 10, let's go!
Yes.
All right, and with that, I am done with my spiel. Yay!
Finally, Mike. No. So we started at about 3:30 my time. It is now 6.
Yeah.
We've been recording for 2.5 hours.
New record, let's go!
Jesus Christ.
I had a lot to say.
Yeah, which is fine. That's what these are kind of made for, like just to update people. Mainly with the newest one, and I just failed at my part.
Oh, you're okay. You get the major points.
Yeah. But so I thought it was funny because episode 8 came out, and I was like, Arcos, and then I was like, I really hope that Jean gets to see Pyrrha again, and I was like, not the next episode, not like that. God damn it. But like, yeah, I was like, no, my boy. And then the Justice League thing happened. I was like, my boy, no.
How much trauma should we inflict on Jean today or this year? Yes.
Yes. How much Pyrrha trauma? Yes. Penny trauma? Yes.
All of it.
All of it. Yeah, we'll obviously cover that, in the next Demon Media, which maybe in 2 weeks, 3. We're recording it next week, but the episode will probably come out a week or 2 after, because I have other recordings, because last week, I believe, or next week, I don't know, it depends on how I feel, will be a Demon Media, last video, because I said the number already, so I can't change it. Last video was, at least last Demon Media was the one with Lunar Kitten. Go watch that. That was about Final Fantasy Security Breach. So don't forget to go watch that as well. We got the chance to talk about that for I don't know how long, because we haven't recorded it yet.
Yay.
But yeah, so I'm really excited for that, and it should be good. Hopefully, I'm going to put a card here, over there. But I just wanted to say thank you, Jen, for being here, spending 2.5 hours talking about.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's always great having you. Now you'll have to watch this episode as well and make a short out of it.
I'm gonna.
No.
I got a few ideas.
Just me eating the whole time. All the time I was gone. That's That
That's
part.
probably is gonna be a short. Oh,
Yeah.
I can take over Demon interviews. Let's go.
Haha. Yeah. But yeah, I think this will come out on the 7th, assuming this on the 7th of June. The
Yep.
week before is the lunar one. Next week, if everything goes well, unless something changes. If something changes, I'll put it in the description. But I'm making it sound like we're interviewing God or something, but we're not, or any God or side, or you know what I mean. We're going to be a interview with a Miss Bella Booty Biddy, so you're getting a lot of Rwby content these next few
Oh, yeah.
days. I'm telling people this because I don't know if anybody's still watching at this point.
So you get a cookie.
Yes, if you
Get a
say say hi in the comments. Like, hi, I want a cookie, and Jen will comment on every single person to hand you a cookie.
Yes. I get a cookie.
And then we're gonna have another Rwby cosplay. This is Rwby. Don't worry. If you feel like you're lacking on the slacking on the lacking clacking on the Rwby, we got a few fun plans. But yeah, so with that, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to follow Jen on all the social media platforms. There'll be a way to get to them in the description below. And with that, I'm gonna go take a nap.
It's bedtime here.
Yes. But I will talk to you all later. And don't forget to watch Rwby on the Crunchyroll. Show them that they should greenlight a volume 10. I keep on wanting to say season. And yeah, hope you all have a nice rest of your day. And at least I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.